Hi, in this video we're going to talk through LaunchDarkly's guarded releases. We'll start by defining what guarded releases are and where and when you might want to use them, and then we'll go ahead and see one in action and talk about how you and your teams can get up and running with them. So let's first talk about different release strategies with LaunchDarkly. On the far left with a Boolean on-off, this means that you have successfully decoupled deployment from release and are now going to use a feature flag to instantly release to everybody. However, this means that there's no split behavior, no slow rollout, so that means that the big change could cause big problems because you're exposing it to everyone all at exactly the same time. That is why a large recommendation of ours is to use progressive releases. This means that we're going to be doing some sort of gradual exposure, whether that is through percentage increases or targeting different segments. This does cause some split behavior in your applications based on who you're targeting. And it also means, though, that you're going to be looking at some high-level manual monitoring, talking to your customers, looking at APM dashboards, that sort of thing. And automating that process is what guarded releases actually do. This has the same sort of automated gradual exposure and split behavior as a progressive release, but now we're going to associate metrics with that particular release so we can do change level monitoring, which unlocks the sorts of actions like proactive notifications and automatic pausing or rolling back if there's an issue. Now, the reason that we actually created guarded releases is because as an industry, our releases have gotten smaller and faster over time. The batch size has gotten smaller, cycle time has gotten faster, and now there are truly teams out there continuously deploying and releasing on demand. However, the observability that we have of the effects of those changes still remains application and service-wide. And that brings us to the thesis of why we created these. We should be able to observe at the size that you upgrade or hotfix or change or release. All of these functional and non-functional changes that are constantly getting exposed to our end audiences, our end users, we should be able to know the effect that that change has on the metrics that we really care about. And it turns out in order to do that, you have to be the one who's controlling the change. So in this case, what LaunchDarkly is actually doing is first directing the traffic, saying who's going to get variation 2 versus variation 1. This is that traffic split. And then as we go down the line in that user journey, we're able to then zoom in on and say, okay, which one is performing better or worse? And that is what unlocks our ability to first correlate which change is causing which issue, and then proactively notify you if something is going wrong and even pause or roll that back in a matter of seconds or minutes. Let's go ahead and see that in action. This is an example of a guarded release that I just got done running. In this case, the flag was controlling the release of a new dashboard, and as part of this release, I wanted to measure 3 key metrics: latency, payment success, and error rate. Now, I got up to a 5% traffic allocation. About 344 of my users were exposed to the new dashboard, and LaunchDarkly was keeping its eye on the relative difference in load time, in this case, between the old dashboard and the new dashboard. Now, we noticed that that latency started spiking, and so LaunchDarkly noticed that regression, rolled back automatically, and that means that the fire is now contained, and we have time and space to fix the underlying issue. Once I'm ready to retry that, then I can click the guarded rollout button up at the top left. LaunchDarkly will automatically associate my guardrail metrics to this particular flag. And that means all I've got to do is tell LaunchDarkly the thresholds and behavior that I want if any of these metrics start going sideways. Now, this is going to be measured continuously over some rollout duration. How aggressive do we want this to be? How long do we want this rollout to take? And if it's not part of this standard easy list, go ahead and select a custom duration, and we'll monitor through the entire time that you decide that you want to roll this out. Now, the way that we're able to actually get some of these signals, like the latency and error rate, those sort of engineering metrics, along with more business conversions like payment success, is in a couple different ways. The easiest path is to use one of our observability SDKs. If you do that, then in this case, I'm looking at a client-side JavaScript example. All you have to do is use the existing LaunchDarkly client that you already know and love and just associate the observability plugin in with that SDK. And it will actually capture a baseline set of metrics that you probably care about for that runtime or for that language that is actually being supported. In the case of client-side JavaScript, it's things like core web vitals and global errors that are happening for the user. And for backend languages, it's more things like HTTP errors, non-HTTP exceptions, request latency, those sorts of more service and API-oriented types of metrics. Outside of these, though, there are also explicit methods that we can use to zoom in on specific critical business flows, along with specific different types of metrics that we might want to capture. Let's see how long a function is taking. Let's count how many times a user is experiencing something. Let's keep track and make sure that we're not going to be seeing our checkout amount fall off a cliff. All of these types of metrics, these signals that matter, can be associated in a many-to-many relationship between your library of metrics that you build up and all of the releases that you have going out the door. LaunchDarkly will take care of all of the correlation down to the variation and context level, so you can make sure that every single change is not degrading those metrics that we care about. Ultimately, what I have already been seeing in our customers who are using this, and what I really hope for you, is that instead of pushing a change, leaving for the day, and then getting some alerts, this disrupts your life. It disrupts the flow of all of our delivery. And instead, what we should be able to do is push a change, leave for the day, see that there was an auto rollback if something went wrong, and then you still get some sleep that night. You don't get woken up. You don't have to spin up a war room. The fire is contained, and we get to fix it next week. If this sounds interesting to you and you would really like to get hands-on, please visit our docs. Please try it in the product. Reach out to us for a demo. We're absolutely here to help and would love to see you use it. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.